Let's get the conversation started. Lawyer and Public Affairs Analyst Daniel Bwala joins me for more on this development. Mr. Bwala, thank you for joining us on the program. President Tinubu's second year has begun with what seems a major wage dispute between federal government and organized labor. Seems a relatively successful first day of the strike with what we've covered across the state. Do you think the Nigerian people want this strike more than those who support this government are willing to admit?
No, it is actually debatable because the workforce of Nigeria, whether you're looking at it from the public sector or private sector, probably is less than 20% of the representation of the entirety of the Nigerian vibrant population, either those who are in the informal private sector or those who are in their own personal endeavor and pursuit, unemployed, underemployed, and all of that. But the strike, as it is reported in various media, appears to be successful, except that I personally think that the strike is not in the interest of even the Nigerian Labour Congress and other trade unions in the first place. The reason is because the essence of strike is to address a problem. And when you go on strike and then your own members become the victim of the strike, then it's a problem. For example, in the UK, there are procedures before you go on strike. The trade union, first of all, what they will do is, and it's the rules, before you embark on strike, you must do a vote. And you must have majority of your members agree to the fact that you need to go on a strike. Majority of the members there is 50%, not less than 50% of the total members of that labor union, registered members. And then when you cast the vote, you must have 40% of the 50, meaning 90% of the people have to agree that you want to go on strike. When they do agree, then you begin the commencement of strike notification and negotiation, which by their procedure will last for 6 months, because strike is not a joke. Now, even when eventually they embark on strike, they have what they call strike pay. That means every member of the labor union that agrees to the strike is entitled to every day of the strike a payment of not less than £50, in some cases £70. You see, so in organized countries, even when they go on strike under the terms that would not be injurious to their own members, because those who have agreed to go on strike are entitled to at least certain strike pay. In Nigeria, does the labor union actually pay the labor workers money for going on strike? Certainly the answer is no. And who are the people suffering?
Bwala, I'm sure you agree with me, also carries the same burden of consequences for this strike. We've seen stranded passengers at the airport who are definitely one of the biggest victims of the strike today. Even commercial banks were affected. The nation, the national grid was shut down. So there is power loss and what have you. There's a long list of the impact. You don't think federal government has a responsibility now to also ensure that this ends? Because organized labor will tell you that this is perhaps the only language they understand.
Yes, but the problem is, are the organized labor even embarking on strike based on the due process of law? The answer is in the negative. The reason is because, first, there is a subsisting order that restricts them from going on strike, which they have disobeyed. Secondly, look at the Trade Dispute Act now of Nigeria. You have to give at least 15 days notification that you're going on strike. You have to notify the government or your employers 15 days. Because the idea of 15 days is to give the opportunity for conciliation, give opportunity for negotiation. In this case, there is already a negotiation ongoing. They've been having meetings, I think even 2 days ago, inclusive of the members of the National Assembly were involved in the negotiation. Who are the National Assembly members? Are they not the representative of the Nigerian people? In other words, that negotiation that took place 2 days ago was actually Nigerians had a negotiation with members of the labor union. So you have to be also sensitive to the situation of the Nigerian people. But let's push it a little further. You see, this is my view. The Nigerian Labour Congress and other trade unions have to understand that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as the president, also thinks in their direction. He also wants a better wage system for the Nigerian people. In fact, it is encapsulated in his mandate, the renewed hope. What does that stand for? It's taking Nigerians to a point where the very creed of the coat of arms will be reflected in their lives. Unity and faith, peace and progress. That means the Nigerian people should be able to enjoy progress, and they will renew their pledge on the flag and the republic. He thinks like that, just like the way they are also saying that. The problem we're having is that while both parties agree to the fact that Nigerians are suffering, we all agree to the fact that the wage system is so low that it cannot match with the inflation. We all agree to these realities.
Is that intentions are not enough. We talked about Labour meeting with the leadership of the National Assembly yesterday. That meeting didn't achieve much. I'm sure you're following the conversations online today. Nigerians talking about how much an individual senator earns in the excess of 20 million naira. Each of these senators earning or wardrobe allowance is in the excess of 600,000 naira per month. That's much more than what Labour is asking. So this government has to bridge between intention and
I agree. But
right?
Let me explain. Without making a case for the National Assembly, because I'm not a spokesman for National Assembly, without even making a case for the federal government, because I'm not spokesman for the federal government, but as a Nigerian citizen, look at it this way. Whatever you mention, whatever you call as the benefit accruable to the National Assembly members, and I have also read in other platforms where people extend that to say even ministers of the Republic enjoy certain privileges in terms of cars. They even extend it to, other government functionaries without making a case for them. All these areas that they are mentioning are not monthly. For example, the National Assembly cars that people are talking of, do they buy a car every month? If you aggregate all the monies of the National Assembly put together, it may not be enough to quantify what would have been in volume what the labor union are asking, which is going to be paid monthly. Let's be realistic. If we have the funds, in my view, even paying labor 1 million naira per month is not bad. But the point is, you have to be realistic. Do you have, let me even tell you the wisdom of labor unions around the world. What they do is, when they negotiate, and then the government says, okay, we are coming this way, no matter how small the increment is, accept for the moment, let that thing go into the payment system, and you are sure that that has come in, then give a little time, and then you can come back and say it is not enough. That way you know that you have at least lifted the salaries of the Nigerian workers from where it used to be to a little bit high. They have not accepted anything, you keep going on strike. So however long it tarries, the people are suffering. And now when you say the federal government is suffering, the impact of this strike, are you saying that the labor workers are enjoying it? This executive of labor union, they are living comfortable probably. Probably part of their modus operandi and activities such that the more the crisis, the better they get paid for that. But how about their members? I am not saying that the federal government should not look into their demands. The meetings that they have had, it has to do with, we can afford to go this way. No, we want you to come up better. Keep negotiating. At least apply the procedure of the law. But if you say you are going on strike in this way, you have to also push it further, because there are other elements in the law that if you choose to go that way, whether you are not even entitled to be paid while you are on strike. So we all agree there is need for increase.
Bwala, what's your assessment of, how genuine the federal government has been in this conversation? It's driven the figure from 48 to 54 and to 60. There's a long gap between 60 and 490,000 naira that Labour is asking for. I know 494,000 is more than 16 times the current minimum wage. Or do you think 60,000 is a living wage that Labour Union is asking?
No, in terms of being realistic to food inflation, inflation generally, and the cost of living in Nigeria, 60,000 is nowhere. It's a fact that I don't think anybody, even the federal government, is not denying that. I don't think anybody in his right senses will say that what even the Labour Party or the Labour Union is asking for is nonsensical. No. The point is, it is not realistic. So it is deserving, but not realistic. And in life, you have to be realistic with yourself. If all of our desires are to be made, my brother, They said if wishes are the beggars, if wishes are to be whatever other beggars will ride on them. If all of our desires are to be made at once, we will not be where we are today. So whatever are your wishes, when you are able to push a little further. Now the point you are asking is, since what they are demanding for is above 400,000, and what federal government is proposing is about 6,000, and there is a wide gap between them, so reasonably the federal government should probably go up. The federal government will be willing to even go to the 400, but do we have the money? We have to be realistic. President Bwala Tinubu inherited a dead economy, and we have to go extra mile to be generating the revenue. Now, states, remember, the negotiation is to impact. They are looking to come to a point where they are going to have a unified wage system. There is a federal government component, there is the state component, and there is a private sector component. What if the federal government beat its chest and say, okay, we'll be able to pay like that, and the states are not able to do that? Have you achieved anything? What about if the states say, okay, who too can do that, and the private sector have not done that?
We'll talk about what figure you think is reasonable that government, can pay, because there is what labor wants, there's also affordability. But that will be right after this break. Stay with us, everyone. Thanks for staying with us, everyone. You're watching Beyond 100 Days. Daniel Bwala is my guest and joins me live from our studio in Abuja. The bone of contention here is a nationwide strike. The power grid is down. People couldn't access some commercial banks across the country today. Passengers at the airports were stranded. How long more can Nigerians suffer? Mr. Bwala, thank you for staying the course on the program. The General Manager of Public Affairs of the TCN today was talking about how the nationwide blackout was due to staff of the TCN under the aegis of the National Union of Electricity Workers completely shutting down all power substations across the country at approximately 2:19 a.m. today. Do you think that the federal government can afford to allow this extend some more? How do you think government should respond at this time?
I think that the government can also be reasonable enough to, because that's the whole essence of negotiation, to still go a little higher. And I don't think that 60,000 is where the government is saying this is final. Everything in life is negotiation. So the point is you have two people on the table and they are exercising their negotiating skills and see where they meet at the end of the day. Even labor, the 600 or 400,000 that they all know is not realistic. But at least they went that high so that they can probably arrive at 100,000 or 120 or 150, whatever is their demand or intentions are. The federal government with rich resources and everything put together will not mind giving them even the 600. When the money is not available, the question is, when you do not have the money, because this thing is a monthly payment, so you have to see whether it is realistic or sustainable. You see, it's just like in those days when we had General Abdul Salam. He was about leaving government. He increased salary and people were saying, Abdul Salam. By the time he left, it became unrealistic. There is a state in Nigeria. The governor increased the wage bill to 70,000 because he's going. It is political. It is for the purposes of election, so that people will be happy. And then after a month or two, his candidate wins, then the man will now come and say there's no money, it can be sustained. We have to go past this political meandering. Let us talk realistic. I believe that there is suffering in the land. I believe the workers deserve much more. But I want to be realistic with what can be and what cannot be. And I am advocating that wisdom be applied by those who negotiate, because the success of negotiation is largely dependent on wisdom. Collect the one that is on ground. Make sure it is in and people are accessing it. Then go further. When you do not collect the one that is on ground, and you're going on a strike that would also impact your own people, I wish that the strike is one that all the workers in Nigeria will not be part of it. That they can have free access to the road, to the transport, to medical services, to everything. How I wish the Nigerian workers will be free of the impact. But who gets the impact more? Do you think the president will come out of his house and enter along to go to Villa? We have to apply wisdom.
Yes, the interesting thing about the figure the federal government is offering is that it's not even as much as what government workers currently earn. If you consider the additional 35,000 naira that this government started paying, following the removal of fuel subsidy. And that's why perhaps Labour is saying you are not showing some reason, you're not being reasonable, and you're not also showing that you know where the shoe pinches for the average Nigerian. But when you consider all of the economic indices, because some have also talked about the possibility of inflation skyrocketing if government pays as much as 495,000, what figure do you have in mind that you think government can pay and that this economy can also allow?
Well, as a person, if you ask me what figure do I have in mind, then you have to also bring a context that assuming there is surplus. If you say, what figure do you have in mind? You see, this is what I wanted Labour to have done, because this is what you see in negotiation, whether in business, in whatever sector of life. For you to be able to ask for more, you should have evidence that the money is available. So I expected Labour to look at not just the budget, but look at all the revenue generating instruments of government and look at how much is coming to the government, how much is devoted to whatever it is devoted. Then point at a particular area that you think spendings in that is accessible, is excessive, and how a portion of it can be given to the labor. Maybe they have had that conversation. I was not in the meeting, so I don't know. But this is the first step to make. But the federal government coming to a point where they pay minimum wage of 150,000 is not a bad idea, as far as I'm concerned, if the money is available. If you ask me, what do I think? I think that the minimum wage should be about 250,000 naira as the minimum wage in Nigeria. But if you think it should be that and there is no money, what do? You have to make do with what you have. That's the point I'm saying, so that it is not misconstrued as if the government is insensitive or that we are not sensitive to the plight of the Nigerian people. Everybody is suffering, and the president is particularly concerned about that. Otherwise, you will not even see the policy of the government in various areas aiming at impacting on the Nigerian people. So you should take that out of the thinking as if the government is not sensitive. But what our conversation should be about is, do we have the money? If we do have, then there should be probably an amicable settlement around a figure that will be reasonable by all. And 150 or 250 is not a bad idea.
There's an ongoing meeting now between the federal government and Labour. We understand that the office of the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, in hours from now, we probably should be getting some update. But what do you think Nigerians should brace up for if this nationwide strike continues? We just, return from an episode of fuel scarcity, and you can imagine adding, scarcity of fuel to what is currently happening.
I think that if the strike continues, definitely it will bring down governance affairs in Nigeria. But, the greater number of the people that will be impacted are more than by 70% the people who are doing the strike. Like I told you, take the population of Nigerian workers, compare it with the generality of the population of Nigerian people, because the organized sector are small compared to the unorganized sectors. And once they go on strike, there is nobody that will not be impacted by that. I was supposed to go back to England, but now I cannot travel because there is strike. Everybody is impacted by that. But my thinking is that our own people who are at the very low level will be impacted much more. The workers you are fighting for will become the first victim of what you're doing. You have to consider that. If you do not know strategy, you will become a victim of tragedy. In every negotiation, however your expectation is, if you are able to make progress from where you are standing, accept that and come back another day. That's why they say you live to fight another day. You cannot stay like the Rock of Gibraltar and you are suffering. All right.
That's our time, Mr. Bwala. Thank you for talking to us. Time is of essence. We're looking forward to intervention from government and to ensure that the suffering stops for majority of Nigerians. Daniel Bwala, lawyer, Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, as always.
That's our show today. You can watch it again at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.